The grand hall gleamed under a cascade of golden light, each crystal chandelier reflecting the power that radiated from the billionaire sheikh. He moved with a commanding presence, a man whose pride was as vast as the desert expanse beyond the palace walls. Every step echoed his dominance. Every glance drew the silent admiration and fear of the elite who filled the room. Yet beneath that all-encompassing control, an unpredictable storm was about to shatter his perfect world. The palace was alive with whispers and shimmering silks, the scent of rare incense weaving through the air, mingling with the subtle aroma of blooming jasmine from the gardens. Luxurious tapestries draped the walls, their golden threads catching the light like the wealth that surrounded the sheikh and his guests. Nobles in jewel-encrusted robes murmured behind delicate fans, eyes sharp for any sign of weakness in there. Revered leader. In stark contrast to this opulence, near the grand entrance, a young girl stood quietly, her slender frame cloaked in a threadbare shawl, eyes burning with a mixture of defiance and desperation. The poorest among the crowds, yet her spirit refused to bow. The billionaire sheikh was known for his unyielding pride and icy demeanor, a solitary figure atop a throne of wealth and influence. Few dared breach the fortress of his indifference. Meanwhile, the girl carried her silent strength in each measured breath, the hunger for dignity shining brighter than any gem. Her gaze, fierce despite her vulnerability, locked briefly with his as he commanded the room. It was a moment electric with unspoken challenge and curiosity. Two worlds colliding without warning. Then, in the midst of his regal stride, fate seized its chance. A sudden, subtle movement from the girl, a desperate reach for a fallen scarf, set off an unforeseen accident. The delicate fabric of the sheikh's pants caught unknowingly on a hidden nail along the ornate staircase, tearing loudly. The rip echoed sharply, slicing through the murmurs and gasps that erupted like wildfire. Time seemed to halt. Eyes widened in stunned disbelief as the billionaire sheikh stood momentarily frozen, his pride rent alongside the fabric. Gasps turned to whispers. The elite guests exchanged scandalized glances while the sheikh's entourage tensed, faces drained of color. Embarrassment flared in the sheikh's eyes, a rare crack in his impenetrable armor. But amid the chaos, his gaze found the girl. No cower, no apology. Only an unflinching stare that met his with steady confidence, a silent defiance that unraveled something deep within him. In that charged silence, walls built by privilege and status trembled. He saw not weakness, but a spark. The fragile girl a mirror, reflecting his own vulnerabilities. Pride wrestled with intrigue. Shame wrestled with fascination. Despite the disapproval curling in the crowd's lips, the sheikh did the unthinkable. With deliberate calm, he signaled one of his guards to escort the girl closer to him. A hush descended, disbelief etched on every glistening eye. This was no accident he would let fade into a forgotten embarrassment. It was the beginning. Before the next secret of this magnificent emirate unfolds, make sure you're part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies will still be sealed, and we can't have you miss a single moment. Leave a like if your heart has already been intrigued by this billionaire sheikh. Tell us in the comments, from which city are you following this saga, and what twist do you think will come next? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to keep bringing them to life. Thank you for being with us. The sudden rip of fabric shattered the polished elegance of the grand hall like an arrow through silk. The room, once awash in golden light and whispered reverence, trembled with a silent shock. The billionaire sheikh froze, his immaculate composure cracked, if only for a heartbeat. His eyes locked with the girl's, her gaze unwavering. A fierce flame burning in the depths of those dark eyes, despite the threadbare shawl that clung to her slight frame. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Delicate fans fluttered nervously, and nobles cast darting glances between the torn fabric and the audacious girl. His entourage stiffened, faces pale, as if the very air had shifted and threatened to choke the unbreakable order they so fiercely guarded. Slowly, deliberately, the sheikh motioned to a tall guard by his side. The command was silent, yet unmistakable. All eyes widened anew when the guard strode toward the girl, carefully but firmly, escorting her past the rows of silken robes and glittering jewels, closer to the throne that had been his unchallenged seat of power. The girl's breath hitched, but she did not falter. Pride, raw and unyielding, shimmered in the depths of her gaze as she stepped into the golden circle of light cast by the towering chandeliers. "Why bring her here?" whispered a noble woman, her jeweled fan trembling slightly. "Some entertainment, perhaps?" breathed a courtier, his voice heavy with disdain. But the sheikh did not speak immediately, his stormy eyes fixed on the girl with a mixture of grudging intrigue and buried storm clouds. In that charged silence, she felt the weight of 1,000 unspoken words pressing down. But her spirit did not wither. "Your Highness," the guard announced quietly, "she is the one who caused the damage." A flicker of amusement, brief, almost imperceptible, crossed the sheikh's face. Then a sharp edge of command in his voice. "Let her explain herself." The girl swallowed hard, but met the gaze of the entire assembly without fear. "It was an accident, my lord," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "I reached for what slipped from my grasp. I meant no disrespect." Silence fell again, this time heavier. Whispers cascaded like flowing streams, some skeptical, others scandalized, as the gulf between the opulence of the halls and the humble figure before them grew even more stark. The sheikh then motioned again, and a handmaiden brought a fine embroidered stole. With a slow, gracious movement, he covered the jagged tear on his garment. "And you, what is your name?" he asked, voice low but clear. The girl hesitated. An old, bruising fear flickered through her thoughts, of being unseen, unheard, invisible at these gilded heights. Yet with a breath tempered by courage, she answered, "Noura, your Highness, Noura." The name lingered in the air like a whispered secret. A strange stillness settled over the room. The sheikh's gaze searched hers, as though probing for a deeper truth beyond the surface. The challenge remained unspoken, an invisible thread woven between two souls from different worlds. Then, unexpectedly, the sheikh inclined his head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement that sent ripples through the assembled guests. It was not approval, Nor was it surrender. It was a gesture of fragile regard that neither of them fully understood. Nora's heart pounded, caught between disbelief and a spark of hope. For a moment, the world beyond the palace seemed to vanish. The desert sands, the whispered rumors, all eclipsed by the intense gravity of this encounter. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the marble corridor, sharp and hurried. A young woman appeared, her eyes wide with urgency, her robes rustling like the whispering wind. She approached the sheikh without hesitation. "Your Highness," she said, her voice strained. "There is news from the southern borders." The sheikh's expression hardened immediately, the momentary softness retreating like a desert mirage. "Speak." A hush fell again. The guests leaned forward, sensing the shift, the tension snapping taut as a bowstring. The caravan carrying the heirloom, stolen months ago, has been spotted, and with it, rumors spread of a traitor within the palace. A flicker of something harsher sparkled in the sheikh's eyes. Anger, suspicion, a surge of protective fury. Nora's gaze darted to the woman who had just spoken, then back to the sheikh. The word traitor hung heavy in the air, thick as the fragrant incense swirling around them. The stakes had suddenly spiraled out of control, entwining their fates in ways no one in the hall could yet grasp. The sheikh's voice, when it came, was a low, dangerous growl. "Gather the council. We will not let treachery fester under our roof." Before anyone could respond, his eyes found Nora again, sharp and piercing. "And as for you," he said, voice like steel softened with a strange weight, "you will remain by my side until I uncover the truth. Your fate is no longer yours alone." Nora's breath caught in her throat. The words echoed through her, a mixture of curse and salvation. Her defiant spirit faltered just for a heartbeat. Around them, the luxury of the palace seemed to close in tighter, the walls narrowing like a gilded cage. And yet, within that cage, a fragile alliance had been forged. The murmurs swelled once more, growing wild. Whispers of scandal and curiosity, of power wielded and challenged. The billionaire sheikh, impeccable and formidable, had tethered himself to a girl from the shadows, an unpredictable flame in the night. As the grand hall returned to uneasy stillness, the sheikh's gaze darkened with a secret that no one else could see, a secret that threatened to unravel everything he believed himself to be. And in that suffocating tension, Nora's eyes flickered with a hidden truth too dangerous to reveal. The palace doors closed behind the last of the guests, sealing them in a web of intrigue and silken shadows. The game had only just begun. The council chamber was cloaked in shadows when the sheikh entered, the weight of the news pressing down like a suffocating veil. His robes brushed the marble quietly, but the storm brewing beneath his composed exterior was anything but silent. Nora followed closely, each step a fragile echo of her newfound place beside the most powerful man in the emirate. His eyes remained fixed ahead, dark pools reflecting the flickering candlelight and the myriad voices murmuring behind carved wooden doors. The air was thick with the scent of frankincense, heavy and intoxicating, mingling uneasily with the tension that clung to the walls like desert heat at midday. "Why did you bring her here?" one of the council elders whispered sharply as the doors closed behind the sheikh, his gaze flickering toward Nora with thinly veiled suspicion. "She will remain," the sheikh said, voice low and deliberate. "She holds the key to more than you understand." Noura caught the glance exchanged between the men, uncertainty sharpened by disdain. Yet she did not shrink. Her shoulders squared, drawing in a breath scented faintly of jasmine from the palace gardens. The room settled into an uneasy silence as the sheikh took his place at the head of the long ebony table, his presence commanding immediate respect. Around him sat the pillars of the emirate, ministers robed in finery, their faces masks of careful neutrality, but their eyes alive with the flicker of hidden agendas. "A traitor walks among us," the sheikh announced, his voice slicing the quiet like a desert wind tearing through fragile dunes. Whispers erupted instantly. Noura felt the glances dart toward her, sharp and measuring, as if she were a flame in a dry forest. "Speak," the sheikh commanded, turning toward the messenger who had brought word of the caravan. "The watchman claims to have seen the caravan crossing the southern pass," the young woman said, tension tight in her tone. "But the heirloom remains missing, and there are rumors, my lord, of a conspirator within the palace." A hush swallowed the chamber. The words hung heavy, tainted with betrayal and shadow. Noura's heart thundered in her chest. She knew every whisper of threat meant a tightening noose, for the sheikh, for herself, and for the fragile web of trust they now shared. The sheikh's gaze found hers again, sharp as a falcon's. "Your insight, Noura." Her voice was steady, though a current of nerves pulsed beneath. "Loyalty is a fragile blade in halls such as these, your highness. But if we seek the serpent, we must look where it hides in plain sight." A sharp intake of breath echoed around the table. The room pulsed with suspicion, and Noura sensed eyes tracing each subtle movement she made. The sheikh leaned forward, fingers pressed together like talons. "Then we begin our hunt. No one leaves the palace grounds until the truth is uncovered." The weight of his decree settled over them, heavy and irrevocable. Later, alone in the private chambers, the sheikh paced with deliberate unrest. The tear in his garment had been mended by silk and thread, but the fissure it symbolized in his carefully ordered life was far from repaired. Noura watched silently from the doorway, her frame outlined by the soft glow of lanterns, her breath steady as she observed the man who had become both his own worst enemy and his only salvation. "You do not trust easily," she observed. He stopped, eyes narrowing. "Trust is not given lightly, especially when betrayal festers beneath your feet." Her gaze softened briefly, the fierce spirit within tempered by understanding. "And yet here you stand, involving me. What do you see in me that the others do not?" The sheikh's jaw tightened, a defiance that could either burn this palace down or protect it from the fire. The words lingered, weighted with unspoken truths. Noura stepped closer, the warmth of her presence bridging the gulf between their worlds. "Then I will fight for you, your highness, for this land and for what we might become." For a long moment, they met in silence, two souls bound by fate and fraught history. But the calm shattered as a messenger burst through the ornate doors, breathless, eyes wide with desperation. "Your Highness, urgent news from the West Wing. There's been an incident. Someone has been found unconscious, and a note was left behind." The sheikh's expression darkened instantly. His protective fury flared, a tempest unleashed beneath the veneer of control. He turned to Noura, voice low but resolute. We are no longer just hunting a traitor. Darkness walks inside these walls. Her heart pounded, the fragile thread holding her life together, now a high-stakes dance on the edge of a blade. As the two moved toward the West Wing, the palace seemed to exhale a breath it had been holding for centuries, the shadows lengthening, secrets creeping closer. And in that moment, Noura realized the game was far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Inside the dimly lit corridor, the note was retrieved, a small scrap of parchment inked hastily with words that froze the blood. Trust no one. The past will consume us all. The Sheikh's hand clenched around the fragile paper, his eyes burning with a silent vow. The past, he whispered, is not done with us yet. Outside, in the cool night air of the desert beyond the palace walls, unseen eyes watched and waited. The hour of reckoning was nearing, and the billionaire sheikh and the girl from the shadowed streets stood at the heart of a storm that threatened to spill beyond their grasp. Their destinies were entwined, but whether they would survive the coming tempest remained a secret held tight in the shifting sands. The palace doors closed behind them once more, the flickering torchlight casting long, uncertain shadows, shadows that whispered of betrayal, love, and a reckoning yet to come. The corridor's heavy silence was shattered only by the sharp intakes of breath and the distant flicker of lantern flames wavering against the stone walls. Noura's fingers tightened instinctively around the fragile scrap, its jagged message searing beneath her skin like a brand. The weight of its words pressed down, but she dared not speak, lest the fragile veneer of calm shatter entirely. The billionaire sheikh's eyes burned with a fierce intensity, shadows dancing across his sharp features that had weathered countless storms, but never one quite like this. His hand clenched the parchment as though squeezing the very truth from its fragile fibers. The past, he whispered, was dragging them into a maelstrom from which escape was uncertain. Without a word, he turned, each step reverberating with command through the darkened halls. Noura followed, her heart pounding in rhythm with the worsening tempest within the palace walls. The air thickened, the scent of rare amber mingling with the faint metallic hint of fear. Every portrait, every emblem of power in the long hallway seemed suddenly to watch them with accusing eyes. Arriving at the West Wing, the door to the chamber was flung open, revealing a stark scene. An ornate carpet stained with deep crimson at its edge, and on the floor, a figure huddled in unconscious shadow. The flickering torchlight cast uneasy movements across the pale face of the victim, the sharp line of a note clutched tightly in one trembling hand. The sheikh's gaze swept the room, muscles taut beneath silk robes. "Who found him?" he demanded with a voice like cracked thunder. A servant, trembling with fright, stepped forward. "I did, Your Highness. He was barely breathing. There was this note beside him." The servant swallowed hard and handed over the paper, its edges singed, as though the words had been written under duress. Noura took it gently, her breath catching as her eyes scanned the hastily scrawled message. "Trust no one. The past will consume us all." The stark warning echoed in the heavy air, a ghostly whisper threatening to unravel every fragile alliance. The Sheikh's jaw clenched so tightly the tendons twitched. "The serpent's poison has found its way deeper into these halls," he said, voice low and menacing. Noura's gaze lifted toward him, her defiance unbroken but tempered with dread. Their fates had been tangled in this web long before the silent threat whispered from crumpled paper. She took a cautious step forward, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear, exposing the subtle tremor beneath her composed surface. "We are being hunted by shadows," she murmured, "but the light still has strength. If we find the serpent, we may yet sever its fangs." He regarded her with a mixture so fierce, it felt like being locked inside a fire. For the first time, beneath the unyielding mask of the billionaire sheikh, a crack of vulnerability flickered, fleeting, yet profound. "Speak carefully," he warned. "This is no mere game of power now. The palace is our battleground." Their eyes locked in an unspoken pact. Two warriors, bound by a fragile thread of trust, amid spiraling suspicion. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed from the far end of the corridor. The Sheikh's attention snapped like a drawn sword, every muscle coiled for confrontation. A messenger appeared, breathless and wide-eyed, clutching a folded parchment like a lifeline. "Your Highness," the messenger said urgently, bowing low. "Another breach. The southern gardens have been infiltrated. Guards found signs of forced entry, and a symbol, Your Highness. The mark of the Order of the Crescent." The Sheikh's expression darkened with grim recognition, a shadow stretching across his proud face. His eyes narrowed into slits as the fully charged reality sunk in. The conspiracies had roots deeper and older than any had dared suspect. "The Order," he breathed, a name heavy with threats whispered only in the darkest circles of power. "They have crossed the threshold." Noura's hand instinctively tightened at her side, the danger now bleeding from whispered threats to the edge of their very survival. "Gather your most trusted," the Sheikh commanded, voice a low growl tethered to razor-sharp authority. "We move swiftly and silently." His gaze found hers again, sharp as a desert thorn. "You will stay close. Your path is no longer your own." Darkness pressed around them as they exited toward the northern wing, past halls lined with tapestries that whispered secrets of ancient betrayals and forbidden desires. Each step felt heavier, the air thick with the scent of jasmine now mingled with impending danger. The palace, magnificent and impenetrable to the outside world, had become a maze of shadows and whispered threats. As they made their way, Noura's mind raced. Who could be trusted in a place where smiles hid knives, and loyalty was often currency for survival? The Sheikh's once invincible facade now trembled under the weight of unseen enemies. A sudden sharp cry sliced through the night. A distant scream shattered the thick veneer of control. The Sheikh halted immediately, every instinct ignited. "Protect this place. Leave no corner unchecked," he ordered in a voice as cold and absolute as desert stone. Noura's breath hitched as they rounded a corner into a hidden courtyard, the moonlight casting sharp silhouettes against the cool marble. There, half hidden by shadows, a small, breathany, clenched fist grasped a worn leather-bound book, the emblem on its cover battered and ancient. Before the Sheikh could reach it, a figure darted from the shadows, a masked courier, swift and desperate. The chase exploded into a flurry of motion, a dance of danger in the heart of the palace. Noura's pulse thundered. The walls seemed to close around them, secrets closing in like sandstorms. The courier stumbled, but vanished into the labyrinthine corridors, leaving only a trembling whisper of silk and a sealed letter dropped at their feet. The sheikh bent, breaking the wax seal with deliberate care, eyes flickering over the ornate script inside. His face paled beneath the moonlight, their worst fears inked in elegant but chilling words. The past awakes. The crown's bloodline is no longer safe. Heed the shadows, or all will burn. A sudden gust swept through the courtyard, stirring the scented air, carrying away the fragile parchment, as if the palace itself rejected their fragile hold on control. The billionaire sheikh stood straighter, features hardened by resolve. "This war," he said, voice low but ironclad, "has only just begun." And behind him, Noura's eyes burned with a fierce new determination. A silent vow forged in fire and shadow. No matter the cost, she would stand by his side. But beyond the palace walls, unseen eyes narrowed in approval, and a cold, merciless smile traced unfamiliar lips. The game was no longer one of whispers and secrets. It was now a battle for survival, where every heartbeat might be their last. A faint rustling reached them from the darkest corner, a movement unnoticed by all but one, and in the shadows, a silver dagger gleamed briefly before disappearing once more into the night. The silence that followed was the calm before a storm that would threaten to consume them all. The night had deepened, shrouding the palace in a cloak woven from shadows and whispered threats. The once resplendent halls now carried an uneasy weight, as if the very stones beneath their feet sensed the betrayal, lurking invisible, yet imminent. The billionaire sheikh's steps echoed sharply as he led the way through the labyrinthine corridors toward the heart of the palace's mystery. Each footfall a thunderous drum, marking the urgency of their plight. Noura's breath caught in her throat, the fragile scrap of parchment still folded within her fingers. A silent promise of destruction, a warning couched in riddles. The words had set a firestorm in motion, one they could neither fully understand nor contain. The past was awakening, and with it, the ghosts that haunted. The corridor's end. As they approached the ornate door leading to the West Wing's inner chamber, the sound of soft voices, hushed but taut with anxiety, slipped through the cracks. The sheikh's gaze sharpened, darkening like the desert before a storm. He paused, barely breathing, before pushing open the door to reveal a tense gathering of palace guards and trusted confidants, clustered around a flickering brazier. The air smelled faintly of burnt cedar and pheromones of fear. "Report," the sheikh commanded, his voice low and carved like obsidian. A tall guard stepped forward, his uniform damp with sweat, eyes wide but steady. "Your Highness, another breach occurred near the southern gardens. The intruders escaped, but we found this." He extended a leather-bound book, its cover worn and embossed with the ancient emblem of the crescent, a relic of secret societies and forgotten loyalties. The sheikh's fingers closed around the book, the leather warm against his palm. Every inch of the palace felt suffocated by the shadows of treachery. But here, In this fragile tome lay a fragment of truth he could not ignore. Noura stepped closer, her voice a barely audible whisper. The Order of the Crescent, it's been reborn in the palace. He met her gaze, eyes aflame, and if their reach has pierced this sanctuary, then no one, not even I, is above suspicion. Silence settled like dust. The whispered rumors, the stolen heirloom, the traitor's note. The palace was a tinderbox set to ignite. For a moment, the Sheikh's facade of icy control faltered. He clenched his jaw, the weight of centuries of expectations pressing down on him. Yet beneath that storm lay a yearning, an unspoken need for trust, for an ally in the storm. Noura saw it, the flicker of vulnerability flashing in his eyes as he said, "We must root out the serpent before it strikes again." Her heart pounded, caught between fear and fierce resolve. "I will stand with you, even if the palace crumbles around us." He nodded, his stormy gaze lingering on her with an intensity that sent a shiver racing down her spine. Between the opulence and treachery, between the power and the peril, their fates had become irrevocably entwined. Suddenly, the heavy silence shattered as footsteps approached rapidly down the corridor. A breathless messenger appeared, clutching another missive, his face pale as desert moonlight. "Your Highness," the messenger gasped, "there's been an incident near the tower. A servant was found unconscious, a dagger in hand, and this." He unfolded a piece of fine parchment, its edges curled like the wings of a falcon. The Sheikh's eyes narrowed. As he took the note, scanning the jagged script with sharpened focus. "The past is a blade unsheathed. Those who wield it must beware." The words struck like a cold gust cutting through the desert night, promising violence masked beneath loyalty. His hand trembled briefly, a brittle fracture in his otherwise unbreakable composure. "The shadows are closer than I feared," he muttered. Noura's voice was steady, though her pulse raced. "Every corner hides a knife, every smile a hidden sting. Yet this is our home. We cannot falter." His jaw set hard, determination solidifying like sandstone. "Prepare the guards. I want every servant and noble questioned. The traitor moves among us still, and time is the enemy." He looked to Noura, eyes sharp as glass. "You will remain near me. Your instincts may be the key to unmasking this poison." A fragile heat blossomed between them. A silent promise kindled amid the gathering storm. As they moved through the palace, the grandeur seemed to close in tighter. Tapestries whispered ancient betrayals. Chandeliers shimmered with icy judgment, and every footstep echoed twofold, their own and the shadow of doubt. They reached the outer balcony, the night air cool and fragrant with desert blossoms, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension. For a heartbeat, the Sheikh's mask slipped again, revealing a man weary from battles won and those yet to come. His gaze drifted to the endless sea of stars, seeking answers among their cold light. Noura stepped beside him, their shoulders brushing, the contact electric yet tentative. "Your burden is heavy," she said softly, "but even the mightiest empire falls, piece by piece, without loyal hands to hold the stones." He turned to her then, vulnerability folding into fierce resolve. "And it is those hands I must trust, though the cost may be higher than either of us dare imagine. Her gaze locked on his, bold and unyielding. Then let us face the storm together. For in the darkest night, even a single spark can ignite a blaze. A distant cry fractured the fragile moment, sharp and sudden, an alarm bell tolling through the still air. The Sheikh's face darkened with a storm yet to break. "They have struck again," he whispered. Noura's grip tightened on the edge of the balcony, nails digging into the smooth stone. Behind them, the palace doors rattled open, a shadow stepping into the faint moonlight, a figure draped in black, a faint glint of steel caught in the flickering torchlight. The figure spoke, voice dripping with cold menace. "The past demands its due. The Sheikh's reign is closer to ruin than he knows." The Sheikh's eyes blazed, the fire of command igniting anew. "Show yourself." But the figure vanished as swiftly as it had appeared, leaving only the echo of laughter, a harsh promise in the night. Noura's breath caught. This is no longer a game of power or pride. It's a war against ghosts. The Sheikh's smile was grim. "A blade forged in shadows, and I intend to win." As the winds swept across the desert, beyond the palace walls, carrying secrets and threats alike, two figures stood on the precipice of destiny, a billionaire sheikh whose empire teetered on the edge, and a girl from the shadows whose courage might either save them both or doom them forever. The night held its breath, while unseen eyes watched from the darkness, waiting for the first move in a deadly dance. And somewhere, hidden beneath the glittering surface of palace intrigue, a silent dagger awaited its next victim. The night deepened, settling over the palace like a velvet shroud, etched with shadows and secrets. The flicker of torchlight cast uneven reflections on the marble, while the rich scent of amber and jasmine lingered heavily in the narrow corridors. Each step the billionaire sheikh took was measured, deliberate, a silent drumbeat, resonating with authority and a restless fury beneath the surface. Noura followed closely, her breath steady but her heart racing. The weight of the ominous message still trembled in her grasp. "Trust no one. The past will consume us all." The words whispered an ancient menace, awakening ghosts better left forgotten. The unease was palpable, weaving between them like a silent serpent. The sheikh paused at a heavy door, its dark wood carved with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the wavering light. His fingers brushed the surface, as if invoking both command and caution. Beyond was the sanctum where his most trusted advisors awaited, the council that now felt more like a trial by suspicion. As the door swung open, the air thickened with tension. Torches flickered off stone walls, casting long, unsettling shadows. The council room was suffused with whispered fears, stolen glances, and the brittle weight of betrayal. A tall guard stepped forward, breath ragged but eyes keen. "Your Highness, the southern gardens have experienced another breach." No bodies were found, but symbols, marks of the Order of the Crescent, were left behind. The sheikh's dark eyes narrowed, icy and sharp. The ancient society was a phantom from his past, a legend wrapped in conspiracy, now resurrected within his fortress. Noura's shoulders squared beside him, the faint glow of lantern light tracing the line of her determined jaw. "The serpent's reach is longer than we feared," she murmured. "Longer and deadlier," the sheikh growled, voice low and resolute. "We face enemies cloaked in shadows, hidden behind smiles and loyalty that kills." Whispers stirred in the council, but no member dared challenge his command. Their eyes, however, betrayed the fissures beneath their polished exteriors. He turned to Noura, the faintest edge of a storm playing in his gaze. "Remain close. Your insight unsettles them, but it's a necessary edge." She met his look, unwavering, a fragile alliance forged in fire and desperation. From the corridor, hurried footsteps pierced the tense silence. A messenger, pale and breathless, entered clutching a folded parchment. His voice cracked as he addressed the assembly. "Your Highness, an incident at the West Tower. A servant was found unconscious. A dagger lay beside him." This note was pinned to his chest. The sheikh's hand tightened on the smooth wood of the table. His eyes scanned the note, the inked warning, a cold blade cutting through the fragile calm. "The past is not done with us. Beware the shadows that wear trusted faces." The words settled like dust, a silent curse. Noura swallowed hard, feeling the chill slide down her spine. This war was more vicious, more personal than either had imagined. He stood abruptly, the mask of icy control slipping to reveal a raw edge of fury and fear. "No one leaves. Every soul within these walls is under suspicion until the traitor is found." The council shifted, the veneer of allegiance fracturing with the decree. The sheikh stepped toward the balcony, overlooking the sprawling palace grounds. The desert night stretched beyond like an ocean of dark waves. His cloak fluttered in the breeze, the delicate scent of night-blooming jasmine mingling with the heat of silent threats. Noura joined him, the space between them charged with unspoken understanding and a flicker of something deeper, an ember of trust amid encroaching darkness. "Even the mightiest fall," she said softly, "but the strongest rise again when they are not alone." His gaze lingered on hers, vulnerable beneath his sovereign pride. "I will not fall, not with you by my side." Suddenly a sharp cry shattered the fragile peace. A distant alarm bell knelled through the palace as shadows converged toward the eastern wing. The sheikh's posture coiled with readiness. "They are striking faster than we can contain." Noura's breath caught as they raced through cold stone corridors, the sound of boots and hurried voices echoing like a rising storm. In the dim corridor ahead, a figure emerged from darkness, a silhouette veiled in black, movement fluid and sinister. The sheikh halted, every sense taut. The figure's voice was a venomous hiss, laden with menace. "The throne is brittle. Its foundation rots from within. Reveal yourself," the sheikh commanded, voice ringing sharp as a sword's edge. But the shadow slipped away like smoke, leaving only a cold trace of laughter, lingering in the cool air. Noura's eyes darted, heart pounding fiercely. This is no ordinary enemy. They know us, our fears, our scars. The sheikh's jaw clenched. Then we must be sharper than their shadows. A breath passed between them, dense with promise and peril, as the wind whispered through the palace courtyards, carrying secrets and threats in equal measure. The billionaire sheikh and the girl from the shadows stood united on the knife's edge of fate, two souls bound by defiance and the fragile hope of love. But behind them, in the deepest shadow of the throne room, a pair of eyes burned cold with ruthless intent. A silver dagger gleamed briefly under flickering torchlight, the promise of blood, betrayal, and a reckoning soon to ignite. The game was no longer hidden in whispers. It was a war for survival, and no one was safe. The night air clung heavy with foreboding as the Billionaire Sheikh and Noura moved swiftly through the twisting halls of the palace. Each step echoed against the cold marble, a steady rhythm punctuated only by their measured breaths and the distant hum of uneasy whispers. The sealed letter burned in his palm, its inked menace refusing to fade, while around them, the opulence of their surroundings seemed to close tighter, a gilded cage brimming with shadows. Noura's eyes flicked to the Sheikh, illuminated briefly by the flickering lantern light. There was a storm beneath his composed exterior, tense muscles, clenched jaws, yet behind the tempest, an unmistakable vulnerability lingered. It was a vulnerability few were allowed to see. Tonight, it connected them in ways words could never express. He broke the silence with a voice low and gravelly. They move with purpose. The order's reach poisons the very heart of this palace. She drew in a breath, the scent of amber still heavy around them. This isn't just a threat to you or your reign. It seeps into everything, into us all. A faint rustle of silk made them both turn sharply. From the shadows emerged a slender figure, a trusted guard, his expression grave but resolute. "Your Highness," he whispered urgently, "the eastern wing has been compromised again. Signs of forced entry, but the intruders escaped before we could intervene. This," he held out a small, dark amulet glinting with cold menace, "was found near the scene." The Sheikh's fingers brushed the amulet, its surface smooth but chilling. The symbol etched upon it was unmistakable. The crescent, a silent mark of the order, their unrelenting specter. "Prepare the guards. Double the watch. We cannot allow another breach." His command was swift, as relentless as the desert sun. Noura stepped closer, her gaze fierce but steady. "We must think like them, predict their moves before the shadows find us again." He looked down at her, the plain truth in her words matching the turmoil in his soul. "You've seen the darkness they cultivate. Tell me, Noura, what hides beneath their masks?" She hesitated, then met his gaze unflinchingly. Fear, and something more dangerous, cunning shaped by desperation. They've been patient, waiting for cracks in the foundation. Now they strike where it hurts. The trust you've built, the loyalty you assumed was unwavering. His eyes darkened further. Trust, once broken, is the hardest thing to restore. That's why we must not only seek the traitor, but root out every whisper of deceit. Her voice softened, just enough to reveal the weight she carried. For the palace to survive, nothing can be left to chance. The Sheikh's lips pressed into a thin line, the decisive edge of a ruler forced to gamble everything. Then those who cannot be trusted will find no sanctuary here. Moments passed, thick with unspoken tension. Then the distant clatter of hurried footsteps reached them, urgent, relentless. A young woman burst through the corridor's darkness, breathless, her cheeks flushed from exertion. "Your Highness," she exclaimed, extending a folded parchment, trembling in her hand. "There's been an attack near the inner gardens. A servant found unconscious, a dagger clutched in his hand, and this note pinned to his chest." With a steady hand, the sheikh unfolded the parchment. His eyes scanned the sharp, frantic script. "The past claws back, consuming those who forget its price." A cold shiver ran down the spine of the Grand Chamber. "This is more than rebellion. It is a reckoning," the sheikh said, voice barely a whisper, yet filled with iron resolve. Noura's heart thundered in response. "The past, it will not be silenced." Her glance swept the corridor walls, witnesses to centuries of power, betrayal, and longing. A heavy silence followed before the sheikh spoke again. "Gather the council. Everyone must face scrutiny. The traitor's shadow stretches further than we imagined." His words settled like desert dust, and in that moment, the grand palace, its sparkling chandeliers, gleaming gold, and fragrant gardens felt vulnerable and fragile. Noura reached out, her fingers brushing the edge of his sleeve. A small touch, unbidden but electric. His stormy gaze fell on her with something softer, as if tethered to the fragile trust they now shared. Outside, the moon illuminated the endless dunes beyond the palace walls, a silent witness to the unfolding tempest. "You've changed the rules," he murmured. "No longer am I alone in this fight." "No," she answered, voice steady and fierce. "We face the storm side by side." But before the fragile peace could settle, a sudden clatter echoed from the corridor ahead. A shadow darted swiftly, too fast to catch in the flickering torchlight. The sheikh's instincts ignited. "Stop them," he barked, turning swiftly toward the fleeing figure. Noura's pulse thundered as she sprinted after the shadow, weaving through the maze of columns and tapestries, whispering secrets old as the sands. Just as the figure reached the stairwell, a desperate cry tore through the night. Suddenly, the pursuer stumbled, disappearing into the darkness with a mocking laugh that chilled the blood. On the cold stone steps lay a single sealed envelope, carelessly discarded. The sheikh knelt, breaking the wax with a surgeon's precision. His eyes scanned the letter's contents, the words of venomous poison injecting dread into every vein. "The crown's blood bleeds beneath the veil. Your time is running out." A long silence stretched between them, as the weight of the message sank. Noura swallowed, feeling the tension ripple like an electric current. The sheikh's voice was low but fierce, carved from bedrock and fire. "This war is no longer just against shadows and whispers. It is a battle for survival, and the enemy knows us better than we know ourselves." His gaze caught hers, dark, intense, impossibly commanding. "Prepare yourself. Tomorrow we uncover who wields the serpent's fangs." As they rose together, the grand palace seemed to pulse with unseen eyes watching, waiting, smiling cruelly in the dark. And beyond the horizon, a silent storm brewed, one that would soon crash down upon them both, testing the fragile alliance between the billionaire sheikh and the girl from the shadows. In the deepest darkness of the vast desert night, a glint of silver flickered, brief, sharp, lethal. Somewhere, a dagger waited patiently for the moment to strike. The flickering torchlight cast long, restless shadows against the cold marble walls, as the Sheikh and Noura moved swiftly through the winding corridors of the palace. The weight of the ominous notes and recent breaches clung to them like an invisible cloak of distrust, thickening the air, clouding the opulence around them with a dark veil. Every echoed footstep seemed a drumbeat, marking the steady march toward chaos. Noura's breath was steady, but her heart thundered beneath the calm veneer. That fragile scrap of parchment, its jagged warning still burning vivid in her mind, "Trust no one. The past will consume us all," felt like a noose tightening with every passing moment. The air smelled faintly of jasmine, mixed with the sharp, metallic trace of fear that simmered beneath the palace's glittering surface. The Sheikh's eyes burned with fierce intensity, searching the dark passage ahead, as if daring the shadows to reveal their secrets. The fury behind his composed mask was a tempest barely restrained. His hand curled tightly around the leather binding of the ancient tome they had found, a relic marked with the emblem of the Order of the Crescent, proof the old specter had awakened. They reached a towering door carved intricately with fading gold leaf and ancient symbols. The Sheikh's fingers brushed the surface with both reverence and command before he pushed it open to reveal the council chamber steeped in flickering candlelight and murmurs of unease. Inside, the tension was suffocating. Ministers and guards alike exchanged wary glances behind veiled eyes, their loyalty fractured by the poison of suspicion. The gathering fell silent as the Sheikh's presence filled the room, commanding with the iron weight of a desert storm. "A serpent festers in our midst," the Sheikh declared, voice low but thunderous, slicing through the quiet like a scimitar through silk. "This palace, our home, is no longer a sanctuary." Whispers rippled through the council like dry tinder struck by flame. Eyes that once promised allegiance now glinted with uncertainty and, worse, concealed agendas. The threat was no longer vague. It had sharpened into something visceral and close. Noura stepped forward, her delicate frame silhouetted against the lavish tapestries. "Your Highness," she said, steady despite the storm swirling within. "The serpent hides not in the shadows, but behind the masks we trust most. We must look beyond the gilded facades to find it." A cold hush fell. The Sheikh's stormy gaze locked on hers, flickering with reluctant admiration. "You see with eyes untouched by palace illusions," he acknowledged. "That gift may yet save us." Before another word could be spoken, hurried footsteps shattered the brittle calm. A breathless messenger entered, eyes wide with urgency, clutching another folded note that trembled as if alive with menace. "Your Highness," the messenger announced, voice faint but urgent. "There's been another incident by the garden's eastern wing. A servant found unconscious, a dagger clutched in his hand, and this message pinned to his chest." The Sheikh stepped forward, his fingers tearing the wax seal free with deliberate precision. His eyes scanned the hastily scrawled words. "The past claws back, consuming those who forget its price." The phrase fell like a curse into the chamber's tense air, promising destruction born of forgotten sins. The Sheikh's jaw tightened, muscles straining as if to lock away an unspoken anguish. "No one will leave until the traitor is found," he commanded, voice ironclad and absolute. Every soul within these walls is under scrutiny. Eyes flickered around the room, some wary, some defiant, but none dared to challenge his decree. The palace suddenly felt less like a haven and more like a powder keg, each smile a fuse waiting to ignite the flames of betrayal. Noura's gaze lingered on the sheikh, sensing the toll the relentless storm was taking on him. Beneath his cold facade, she glimpsed a man burdened by history and haunted by shadows. Yet there was also a fierce determination she had not seen before, a promise that he would stand firm, no matter the cost. They moved together side by side as the palace seemed to close around them, its splendor now oppressive, its beauty a fragile veneer, masking peril at every turn. The scent of night-blooming jasmine mixed with the distant echo of whispered threats. At the outer balcony, the vast desert sky stretched endlessly, studded with cold stars that offered no comfort, only silent witness to the brewing storm. "You carry the weight of an empire," Noura said softly, stepping closer, her voice barely more than a breath, but even the strongest fall alone. He turned to meet her eyes, vulnerability briefly softening the hard line of his jaw. "Then I will not fall," he said, voice low and fierce. "Not while you stand with me." A sudden sharp cry shattered the fragile moment, a staccato alarm ringing through the chilly night air, carrying a promise of impending chaos. The sheikh's body tensed, every muscle coiled and ready. "They are striking again," he warned. Noura's pulse pounded in her ears as they raced back into the heart of the palace, the shadows alive with whispered danger. They wove through the labyrinth of corridors, chasing a silhouette that moved with haunting grace, a shadow veiled in black. The figure stopped abruptly, turning without fear. Their voice was a venomous hiss, dripping with chilling prophecy. "The throne crumbles. Its foundation rots from within." "Reveal yourself," the sheikh commanded, his voice a thunderclap that shattered the night's stillness. But the figure slipped away, vanishing like smoke, leaving behind only a chilling echo of laughter that shivered down the spine. Breathless, Noura's eyes flashed with fierce resolve. This war, it is no longer hidden behind power or pride. The sheikh's smile was grim, forged in fire and shadow. "I intend to win, no matter the cost." Their eyes locked, two souls intertwined in a deadly dance where love and betrayal clashed like desert storms. Behind them, unseen in the darkest recesses, a pair of cold eyes glimmered, watching, waiting. A silver dagger flashed briefly under the flickering torchlight, then vanished into the night. The game had just turned deadly. The dawn brushed the horizon with delicate shades of gold and rose, casting a serene glow over the vast emirate. Beneath the awakening sky, the palace stood majestic yet softened, its turmoil of the night before melting like shadows with the first light. Inside the grand hall, now stripped of whispered accusations and hidden daggers, the billionaire sheikh moved with a calm authority, transformed by grace rather than fear. Noura watched him from across the room, her heart steady and hopeful. The chaos that had threatened to fracture their world had been met head-on, and though scars remained, a new strength bound them tighter than ever. Her journey from the fringes of the city to this moment had been harrowing, but here she was, no longer a girl cloaked in threadbare shawls, but a woman whose spirit had carved a place beside the most powerful man in the land. The final revelation had shattered the walls of deception that had suffocated the palace. The traitor, once hidden among trusted ears, had been unmasked through a blend of cunning, courage, and the unyielding bond between the Sheikh and Noura. The council chamber's whispered doubt had turned to resolute loyalty, the fractures mended by truth and shared purpose. He stepped to her side, his gaze soft, yet resolute. "Noura," he said, voice low but warm, "we've crossed the darkest night together. Now, with the dawn, comes a chance not only to rebuild what was broken, but to create something stronger, unshakable." Her eyes glistened, mirroring the promise in his words. The palace gardens bloomed outside, a sea of jasmine and desert roses nodding gently in the morning breeze, their fragrance a balm to wounded souls. It was as if the earth itself celebrated their victory, washing away the bitter nights and the sting of betrayal. "I never imagined this place, these people, could change so much in such a short time," Noura whispered. "Or that I would find hope where once there was only survival." He smiled, a rare softness touching his usually guarded face. "And I never imagined I would find a partner worthy of standing beside me, not only in power, but in heart. You are my fiercest ally, Noura, the flame that refused to be extinguished." A gentle warmth spread through her chest, a silent acknowledgement of all they had endured, each confrontation, every secret revealed, every fracture healed through shared strength. That flame, once fragile, now roared quietly beneath the surface, steady and unyielding. Outside, the chamber doors opened, and members of the council approached with newfound respect and admiration. The silks that once hidden whispered schemes now moved with proud purpose, united behind a leader reborn from trial. The Sheikh's vision for the emirate was no longer one of isolated authority, but one shaped by inclusivity, justice, and the delicate balance of trust. A soft murmur of approval swelled from those gathered, their eyes shining with a collective hope. The wounds inflicted by the past had not vanished, but were embraced as lessons, fueling a determined spirit to safeguard the future. Later, stepped into the sunlight, flooding the balcony overlooking the desert dunes. Endless and eternal, they found a moment of peace, a rare breath drawn between breaths of struggle. The vast sky stretched above them, the sands whispering ancient secrets of resilience and renewal. He took her hand in his, their fingers entwining with the ease of those who had weathered storms and found refuge in each other. "There is much to be done," he said, "but with you beside me, I know we will endure whatever comes." Noura leaned into the warmth of his touch, the solidity of his presence grounding her fears and hopes alike. "Together," she affirmed. "No darkness is too deep when faced with light shared between two souls." For a long moment, words were unnecessary. The palace behind them gleamed bright and clear under the morning sun. The echo of past dangers, now just distant memories, fading into lessons learned. As the gentle desert breeze stirred, carrying scents of jasmine and amber, the billionaire sheikh and the girl from the shadows stood not as adversaries or survivors alone, but as partners in a story reborn, destined for a future that promised more than power. It promised a love resilient enough to conquer every shadow. And in that new dawn, framed by the endless desert and the renewed palace, their silhouettes merged, a testament to hope prevailing, to hearts mended, and to a legacy forged in fire and truth, forever unbreakable.